What's happening, people? So let me throw my 2 cents in here. I got an article and a link down in the description asking the question if Sony should create another handheld. And a lot of you know I'm going to say no. A lot of you know that. That's no bullshit, right? And you know my reasons. And they're damn good. I'm sorry they are. Sony, you botched and fucked both of them to hell and back. No matter how big a fan base you possibly have, because there's not ever going to be a fan base bigger than the PS2's fan base. I mean, 155 plus million PS2 sold. They haven't broken 100 cents. So no matter how big your fan base, no matter how loyal your PlayStation Vita fan base can be, no matter how good you can make a handheld, Sony, you yourself fuck it up. You yourself are solely responsible for the failures in the handheld department. Yet you act like it's the consumer's fault. I don't recall a consumer saying, please Sony, make me pay 3 to 4 times more than the average memory card on the market. I don't recall that being a conversation. I don't recall one video saying, please Sony, let me pay way more than the memory card's worth so I can have some save data on my fucking handheld. I don't recall a conversation going that way. I don't recall one person saying that yes, one mobile carrier is a good way to go about adding in a mobile option to your handheld device. I don't recall that happening. And I don't recall Nintendo or anybody ever saying that they want to pay the same exact fucking amount for a handheld as they do a core console. I don't recall these conversations ever happening, yet Sony, you answer those every time. You answer, is it possible? Will anyone buy it? Is there going to be anything good on it? You answer all these questions the wrong fucking way. You're like, yes, there's plenty of good games on it, but yes, it's going to run you the same exact cost as our base console. Whatever the one be, whether it be the PS3, whether it be the PS4, you're going to pay the same fucking amount for less options. So then PS4 is like $250 now. And it's over $250 for a maxed out memory PS Vita. Think about that. Because we're at the end of 2018. At the end of 2018, a 64 gig memory card for the PS Vita, because it is proprietary, is still over $100 fucking dollars. Hell, the 32 gig one is at $100. Think about that. 32 gigs in 2018, at the end of 2018 for the PS Vita is still $100 fucking dollars. The system itself is $150 fucking dollars. Zero memory is built into the damn thing. You did nobody a favor with the PS Vita, and I can go one better and tell you did no one a favor with the PSP. You fucked that several different ways, let's be honest. You put in one joystick, which didn't bother me. I wasn't complaining about it, but a lot of people did, which is why you added in a second one to the Vita. Most games on the PSP were good. I enjoyed the PSP. I really did. I played Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. I played Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, Peace Walkers, the Metal Gear Solid game, both God of Wars. There were a bunch of good titles. Grand Theft Auto, Liberty City Stories, Vice City Stories. Plenty of good content. So the content was never the problem, Sony. You are the problem when it comes to handheld, Sony. Get your head out of your ass. Fucking act like you know what you're doing. It's not that you can't create another handheld because no one will buy it. You have to learn the number one thing about Sony products, Sony. The number one thing here is proprietary is a dirty word. It hurts your product. Something you haven't figured out in 2 fucking handhelds. 2 handhelds that haven't performed the way they should. And it's due to that word proprietary. You must buy a overpriced memory card that isn't even the most you can get at the time. It's not even close to the max amount. The PSP should have had a 64 gig. The PS Vita could have had 128. Sony opted 32 max on the PSP. opted 64 max on the PS Vita. Both of those were overwhelmingly undesirable from price and the amount of memory for the times in which they were represented. 64 gigs was laughable when the 3DS came out, and yet the 3DS would support a 64 gig memory card if you bought one from Walmart, which is why the 3DS did so much better. And you could say, oh, it's also got the library. Yes, but again, this is why Nintendo's 3DS did so well, Sony. Listen to what I'm telling you. Proprietary isn't something Nintendo does. You have to use their game cards, yeah, but that's it. I have a 64 gig, I believe, in my 3DS at this point in time. A 64 gig memory card, which is the highest you can get for your sack of shit PS Vita. I love my PS Vita. I'm not going to say anything bad about the games. I love some of them. I hate some of them. And most of them don't fucking matter to me. Okay? So, the reason, Sony, the only reason why your handhelds fall and fail miserably is because you still believe in proprietary. You are acting as if this is 1995 and you have to have Sony's memory card to run Sony's product, when that's not the case anymore. It hasn't been the case since like the 1999, early 2000s. Get over yourself, Sony. You will make max profit if you lose the word proprietary. Let's lose that word and start accepting that any way the consumer can save money, they're going to do. So you have to find a way to meet demands and also satisfy the customer, which is why the 3DS is doing so great and has been doing so great for many years. Because when they saw the price was unappealing, they dropped the price. Could you imagine if Nintendo came out with a handheld with a proprietary memory card and charged triple, if not 4 or 5 times more than the shit that you can get in a store? Just imagine. Yeah, Nintendo's next handheld gaming console is going to have Nintendo's proprietary memory cards, and their 64 gig memory card, which was like $10 on Black Friday and usually runs you about $30, is $150. Can you imagine that? Imagine Nintendo hating their customer base so much that they tell you can't play their gaming console, their handheld console, without buying a proprietary memory card and charging way more than the amount it's really worth, because it's proprietary, which is what you do, Sony. It's what you do. It's what you're the best at. Because even when the PS4 came out, memory for the PS4 was way more expensive than it was for the Xbox One. The Xbox One supported hard drives, physically supported external hard drives way longer than you have, Sony. So it's not that I don't believe you can't release another console. My belief is, if you do, you're going to continue to pull a Sony and fuck your customers as hard as you can, and your customers are going to be like, the fuck out of here. I'm not buying it. I don't want to buy it, even though I might instinctively want to buy it. I'm not going to, due to the fact I know Sony, you would fuck it on purpose. You understand what I'm saying? It's got nothing to do with, is it a good system or not? Because the Vita is a good system. It has some really great games, has some really great ports, a lot of great indie titles. The Vita has a good catalog. However, proprietary is what killed it. Proprietary is what's holding you back, Sony. And I've used plenty of examples using Nintendo because that's your only other competition in handheld, and it's Nintendo. And Nintendo has had this thing down pat, which means the blueprint is available to the public. Okay? Which means you have the blueprint to make a good handheld console. You just are lazy, greedy son of a bitch. That's exactly what it is. Well, if we don't charge people for the memory card, and we don't charge them outstandingly, then we won't make any fucking money. Never mind, there's PlayStation Plus, which costs money. The games that cost money. Buying the system costs money. Buying memory for the system costs money, especially if you want enough memory to run the damn thing, which Sony, you've never created. So it's you, Sony, and I will say this until I'm dead. You are your own worst enemy. Whoever your investors are who continue to tell you to do this shitty practice, you need to kick them in the ass and tell them to get the fuck out. Because they're not helping you. The PS Vita was held back due to proprietary memory, proprietary 3G service through AT&T, even though there's like 5 to 10 different services, which are mainstream now. You literally held your own system back from success. And I honestly believe the reason you did that was so that the PS4 and at the time the PS3 could actually catch traction, because if you focused on your handheld more than you did your core console, it wouldn't have sold that well. That's how you think. And if you think that's a lie, just look at how they were handled. Look at how the Vita was handled. Look at how the PSP was handled. When the PS3 came out, remember, they told the PSP to fuck off. It wasn't until 2 years after the PS3 came out and they saw that it was failing that they paid the PSP any attention again. Which is why we got Ghost of Sparta on the PSP. Which is why Mag was on there. Which is why Birth by Sleep was on there. All those games came later down the road. Once they realized the PS3 wasn't a success. Once they realized nobody was spending $600 on it, they said, hey, we have a cheaper alternative, the PSP. We need to start pushing that again. We need to start creating for that again. The PSP failed on so many levels. Yes, people didn't like the UMD disc. Sony was selling movies on UMD discs. So they were really trying to do something innovative with it, but they failed because they didn't focus enough attention on it, because the PS3 came out and they just swept it under the rug. Like I said, you can argue about the Joy-Con or the Joy-Pad, whatever you want to call it, the one on this PSP. But it worked for most games. It worked. And even the D-pad worked. The directional pad, it worked. So there was really not a whole hell of a lot wrong with it. And I will say, I don't like the touchback, the tickle the ass or the tickle the fucking front. I hate that shit about the Vita. It's really annoying. I wish they would have created it and made a fatter version, sort of like what the 3DS does, the new 3DS. If they want to keep it slim, have a R2 button and a R1 button separate on the top, sort of like a regular controller. In fact, here's this right here. Okay, let's see right here, bam, like how they are. And it's not that difficult to control that. You see what I'm saying? People think, oh, it's really difficult. It's really not. I think the PS Vita missed a really good opportunity there. And remote play was a big thing that could have taken off in the right direction. And Sony, y'all are idiots for killing that. Yes, you killed it, not your customers. But it made playing games difficult because you had to tickle the ass for R2 and L2. And the placement on where on the back to touch was confusing because different games had different spots, and therefore it failed. This was on you. You are the person who created the PS Vita, and the reason it's so bad is because of your design. The overall way it looks is fine. Excuse me, but if you wanted the screen to be front ticklish, cool. If you wanted something on the back, you should have put regular buttons. There should be no tickling the ass of this thing and no tickling the fucking front of it. You only tickle the front of it. The back has 2 buttons, which are very accessible because of the way you hold it. That would have been more of a success. Would have been way better. But you didn't go that route. You didn't go that route. I can't blame the sales. I can't blame the customer, Sony. Your design was flawed. Your idea was flawed. Proprietary is a bad word. Everything about this system says fail. Everything. You ported Gravity Rush to the PS4. You should port Uncharted, The Golden Abyss. You should port almost any of the good games, really. I mean, I don't even care at this point. Any of them that are good, they should be ported just because of the simple fact you created a Wii U portable. Like, that's what you did. The Vita is basically a Wii U. Only certain people respect it, and only certain people own one, okay? So let's put it that way. Overall, Sony, unless you figure out now, unless you legit take this advice, unless you figure out proprietary is a bad word that will damage your overall reputation and sales numbers, don't release another handheld. I don't care how pretty it looks. I don't care if it's on par with the PS4 graphics. I don't care. proprietary has been a dirty word and a very, very key reason to why your success in handhelds hasn't been nearly as good as it could have been. I remember there was for the PSP, in fact, the way to get the memory to be bigger than 32 gigs was a special built memory card where you could plug in two at separate different angles and then plug it into the PSP. Why? Sony, I'm going to end it with this. If you want to release a successor to the PS Vita, okay. But if you stand by and stick to your guns on this proprietary bullshit, it's going to be a bigger flop and you're not going to make any fucking money. And you probably won't be forgiven. Look at what's going on with Bethesda. Look at what's going on with Blizzard. Look what's going on with the PS1 Classic. All these things. They're not good. And people are not forgiving companies for making the same fucking mistakes and worse, repeating them. You feel what I'm saying? So before you go out and do anything, remember that. We can't fuck it up because the consumer is not as forgiving as they once were. And third time is possibly a complete out, meaning you probably won't survive. Your financial state right now says you shouldn't release one due to the fact you haven't learned from the first two. In fact, hopefully the PS5 learns from the mistakes of the PS4 and PS3, and you come out with memory on day one that isn't a fucking joke. Hopefully you come out with something on day one where I don't have to worry about anything for a good fucking while. I'm talking to you PlayStation and Xbox at that point. Both of y'all launched this generation's console with joke memory that nobody should have bought. But at least I can say Xbox, you saw the problem, you saw the writing on the wall about the memory, and you fixed it damn fast. PlayStation, it took you 3 fucking years before you even thought to fix it. Think about that. So, if you want to release a handheld, go for it. But you damn well better learn from the mistakes of the past, of not only your core consoles, but your handheld consoles. If you want to release another one, go for it. But I'm telling you right now, if you repeat the same mistakes, no one will buy it.